Hello there and welcome back to another movie review. Today we're going to be having a look at Chow Fat's Wild Search. I don't think I've reviewed any Chow Fat movies yet. That is about to change. Going to just start, we'll just pick one at random, going to work on Wild Search today. Directed by Ringo Lam and starring none other than I've mentioned Chow Fat. The film has always been described as sort of a loose sort of remake, reimagining if you will, of the film Witness starring Harrison Ford. And whilst that notion can be deemed as true, it's a very loose reimagining if you want to call it a reimagining or a remake or a version of Witness, whatever you want to call it. Really awesome to be reviewing some Ringo Lam films, and Wild Search is a great place to start. As I say, I had to start somewhere, so I thought, why not? I'll just give Wild Search a review. Of course, I will get round to reviewing some of more notable releases like, City on Fire, Full Contact, but we'll start with Wild Search. The film was made in 1989. I believe it was the third time Lam and Chow worked together after City on Fire and I believe Prison on Fire. If that's right, you have to correct me wrong if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure this was around I think this was their first sort of collaboration time they worked together. I often feel vastly underrated as director and filmmaker and sometimes overshadowed when thinking in terms of Hong Kong movie making by the likes of John Woo and Tsui Hark. Ringo Lam really is not to be undervalued, right? Ringo Lam, he's just as important in terms of filmmakers as what sort of John Woo and like Tsui Hark were and are. Chow was, he was so busy the year this was made in 1989. I mean, he made God of Gamblers with Wong Jing, The Killer with John Woo, Better Tomorrow 3, a couple of others. And this movie, I mean, this was all in the same year. So Chow Fat at this point, he was a very, very busy guy, right? I mean, the fact of the matter was, Chow Fat was hot stuff, right? He was the thing to be, he was the person to have in your film. I believe Lam and Chow had known each other for a long time, meeting at the actors training program in Hong Kong. Though sometimes Lam's films do fall into cliches and common themes and plot threads, there is always something about his movies that make them seem unique and different. Ringo Lam, as I mentioned, I will try and get through a lot of his back catalogue because there's a lot to say about most of his movies. Ringo Lam directed one of the 80s Go Places movies with Carl Macker, and after this he was given free rein to do what he wanted, and he chose City on Fire, which was of course produced by Carl Macker you may remember from Skinny Tiger, Fatty Dragon. Compared to what he had made before, with On Fire films, Wild Search shows directed that he's hitting the brakes a bit, I think, in this movie. But a film also stars Cherie, Chung, who had worked with Chow, I believe, a couple of times before this as well. So the chemistry was there with our male lead and our female lead between Chow Fat and Cherie Chung. They've got a wonderful chemistry, and it really does show in this movie. You see it on screen, it really does work, and the two leads work amazingly well. Fantastic cinematography in this movie as well from Andrew Lau. And it's just this isn't sort of a hard-boiled, Better Tomorrow type of movie. This is very much just like a thriller. Like I say, you can look at it as a loose reimagining of Peter Weir's Witness. So we meet Brother Meow, played wonderfully by Chow, and right away you will notice how well the film does really show off the Hong Kong streets. And there's always this grittiness and realism in Ringo Lam's films, and you see it here in this movie. He gets told about this tip-off on an arms deal. You find out from the get-go this is a guy that likes to drink and smoke, and I'm sorry, but Chow Fat always looks so damn cool when he's smoking. He just, for some reason, when he's got a cigarette on the go, he just does it with such coolness that you just can't. It's just awesome to see. I do not know why. So we meet these goons that are buying weapons from Sister Ha and are using like this rental place as she is like a real estate agent to use as their arms deal, like where they're going to do the exchange and things like that. We also find out she has a little girl called Kaka, played superbly and adorably by Cheuk-yan, I think is her name. So Chow and his buddies raid the place, and Sister Ha gets shot and the thugs escape. So like the poor little girl is left without a mum. Such an adorable actress as well, like when Chow puts his jacket over her, and the thing looks absolutely huge on her. So her mum was doing like this arms deal. Her mum gets sort of shot, the crooks bail, and the young girl's sort of just left there without a mum. But they'll say this young girl is adorable. Much like the girl in Yuen Biu's On the Run, you just fall in love with them right away. And it's a wonderful little child actor here. They want to find out where where sort of her mum lives and where her sister lives, and so they go to this place out in the New Churches where we meet Chung as Cher, who is like sister Ha's sister, if that makes sense. Even comedy moment here with Chow throwing like fruit or veg or something on the room to distract who is inside, and he does it twice, and both the times it lands on his partner's head. So there is a little bit of comedy here and there. So she also, Cherie Chung also has like an antique shop, and at the moment Cherie is sort of giving them sort of the runaround, as she sort of doesn't trust Chow Yun-fat's character at this point. She's sort of, as I say, sort of leading them on a wild goose chase, so to speak. And his partner keeps calling her a hick, as she isn't like city based. She's sort of out in the country. If you imagine, like in the film Witness, it's very much into the like sort of the Amish community. Here, it's sort of there is that element like she isn't in the city. She's out sort of in the country, and has no idea like she can trust the cops or not. And she's like looking for her sister's address in the hope it might shed some more light on what happened. So after finding it, the thugs are already ransacking the place, who Meow passes on his way up. Finding out where Sister Ha lives, this is, and have like a mini car chase, but it's nothing too full on. Like the action in this film, it's nothing too, it's not like I say, a Killer or Hard Boiled or Better Tomorrow. It's nothing like that. This is Ringo Lam was very good, if you look at films like City on Fire, very good at thrillers, very good, not necessarily action thrillers. He done action films, sure, but in terms of like a thriller, he does it really well. And I say he's often overlooked, like as people just go straight to John Woo. But Ringo Lam, as I mentioned, he's not to be undervalued. But I'd say it's not a massive set piece, but it's an action scene nonetheless. Chow's car gets rear-ended and his car gets beaten up in the process. And I can't stress enough how important the performances are to a movie like this. And Chow and Cherie just play it absolutely wonderfully. They really do. It's worth watching this film just for like the performances alone. It is one of these films, and the two leads, they bounce off each other really well. Like the scene where she is in the car and he buys her a drink, where she refuses at first and obviously grieving and upset about her sister, which we haven't seen her sort of convey any emotion at this point. So take her to like the morgue to identify the body. So Cher has to look after Kaka, the grandfather played by Feng, who you may remember from huge number of Shaw Brothers movies. Feng is really scary towards the little girl. You're not actually sure if the grandpa actually loves her or not, or because at one point he wants to throw her out. So we meet Mr. Hung, played by Chun, who I always remember from Fist of Legend. If you've seen Fist of Legend and you watch this movie, you'll know the guy who I mean. He is like Kaka's father, basically, and a businessman, but he's really into drugs, guns, usual stuff. Basically, he's a bad dude, right? He's a bad dude. So there's your villain. We learn the guys from the deal earlier have gone into hiding. Tense scene when Mr. Hung goes to visit the buyers, finds out his right-hand man, Bullet, played by Ru Chung, killed Sister Ha, as she couldn't have escaped. So it was actually the guys at the deal who killed her because she wasn't going to escape, and if the cops found her, she would have given up, or maybe given up what would happen. So she was like Mr. Hung, like she was sort of in bed with him, so to speak. And you know when a main villain goes, when a main villain, like the main dude, the main bad dude, always says to one of his henchmen, "Give me your gun," you always know something bad never ever happens after that, and this film has a scene like that. So the whole idea is they want Kaka to identify the killer who shot her mum. Basically, this is what the film boils down to after the arms deal has gone south. They want Kaka to identify who actually killed her mum. Chow finds a photo of Mr. Hung that Sister Ha had in a safe box at the bank. Super funny scene where Chow and Nami's assistant are trying to help her clear out her sister's place. I mean, it really did make me laugh, this scene where they're trying to help clear out this apartment, and they're trying to get this massive unit down the stairs, and Chow keeps on getting pinned up against the wall. Like every certain set flight of stairs they take, every time they go around the corner, Chow ends up getting it. This thing looks so awkward to maneuver, and Chow's character always ends up getting pinned against the wall or something like that. So Chow goes to see Mr. Hung, who has no remorse for Sister Ha's death, doesn't want to know his daughter, and to top it all off, has a massive coke problem. So you hate this guy right away, right? You hate this dude right away. So Sister Ha just got into bed with a real nasty piece of work, basically. It was Mr. Hung that brought her the antique shop. He denies that she was an arms dealer. I love how cool Chow is in this scene as well. That they won't let him use the ashtray and he just blows smoke. he just sort of like blows smoke like on the carpet and puts his cigarette out in Mr. Hung's drink and everything. Like he's not intimidated by these guys, and I love how cool he plays it when he's in his office and he just barges in there and everything. They go to Mr. Hung's charity bash, and as he is pretending to be Mr. Hung is basically pretending to be like a respectable businessman, right? But he's not. He's a bad dude, like I say, coke problems, you name it. Chow gets to him to write out a massive check by adding another zero to a amount that he had already written out. Of course, like pushing his luck, such is the nature of Chow's character. Mao gets beaten up as a warning in the car park outside the party. Of course, Hung plays it all cool and out of nowhere, which I love. He just drags Hung out of the car. He just acts like he's outside the party, and he just drags Paul Chun's character straight out of the car, which I definitely didn't see coming. He just basically takes no crap, right? Which is awesome. So as the film unfolds, we learn that Chow's character once had a wife and a son, and Cherie starts to develop like a sweet side for him and making sure he takes his medicine. She's phoning him, so they're developing like this bond. She gets quite smitten with him as well. So like an attraction is starting, and that is what is so wonderful about this film. There's this real gentleness to it. There's a real sort of softness to this movie, and a sweet side. Like when they're walking in the street and they see another couple cuddling, Chow begins to hold her hand, or like when the car breaks down when she's blowing sand out of his eyes and he begins to cuddle her. I mean, this film has tender moments to it. Yes, it is sort of a thriller, an intense thriller, but it does have moments of where it is, like I said earlier, it is Ringo Lam sort of taking his foot off the gas a bit, and this film does have a sweet notion running throughout. So Chow goes to meet a guy at a bar who's been tailing Mr. Hung, and Bullet, the killer guy played by Roger, just walks in right out of nowhere and pops the guy in the back of the head in front of God knows how many witnesses. So we have like a mini shootout here with Bullet getting shot and wounded. Chow now knows what he looks like, and it was the same bullets found in Sister Ha's body as he was in the guy that got shot in the bar. So after being told off for what he did to Hung, Chow is put on temporary leave. Of course, he is fuming, and we learn he was a robber and that killed his wife and son. Though it's never explained on through the kind of film, like sort of like what actually happened in terms of like his wife and son. I mean, you sort of get an overview, but I don't think they needed to go into that too much. The whole idea is he lost his wife and son. It was a robber that killed him. We never really learned how, but the fact is he has lost his wife and son. So we do have a bit of a schmaltzy montage of him and Cherie bonding and how their feelings are growing. Then find out that her character has like a husband, Lung, who has come back from China. And I hate this guy. I hate this Lung guy because he's divorced her, and he just naturally just assumes he can move back in. Right? This film that like between Chow and Cherie, you want them to work out, right? You want them to be the couple. This guy just turns back after divorcing her and says, right, I'm going to move back in. Just naturally assumes he can. Even the grandpa, who Feng is on his side. Kaka runs away at one point as the grandpa says he might sell her. No idea why this grandpa is so mean to her at all. Like, he is ruthless to this little girl. He is so really mean to her. They find her hiding in some straw, and they both go back to Chow's place where they have some dinner. Now, in a typical Hollywood movie, when they go back to Chow's place, that's when they would sort of get it on. Well, two leads would have a kiss or a moment, or they would go to bed together. In a Hollywood film, this would have been a romance sex scene, right? And not in a Hong Kong movie. Not in a Hong Kong movie. They have dinner, she gets a cab home. That's the typical... I mean, it's always so predictable in a Hollywood film when you know... oh, something's gonna happen here. You can see it coming. In here, you think it's gonna happen, but it doesn't. She gets a cab home. Uncle Lee comes to visit Kaka, the Ku Feng's character, to make amends, but she doesn't want to know. Like, he suddenly realised what a complete arsehole of a grandfather he's been. So we learn that these antiques are coming to the shop, which was obviously being used to smuggle guns as a cover. Mr. Hung's goons are taking the stuff. Cherie and Chow get ambushed, and we have some nice car work here. A cop gets run over, and Bullet still wants to finish off Chow. It turns into actually Bullet, the hitman, the main hitman guy, sort of being our main villain in the final act of the movie. Brother Bullet fails yet again to kill Chow. Mr. Hung gets arrested out of nowhere. Someone snitched on him, so that's the end of Paul Chun's character. Paul Chun's character, that is it. Someone snitched on him. He's no longer the main antagonist, right? Basically, the plot comes down to Bullet just has a grudge to settle with Chow Yun Fat, so he just wants to kill him. That is it. That is the only reason he's sort of going after Chow. So that is, like I say, that's the end of Paul Chun's case. So when you look at the movie, it's so damn simple, but the way Lam directs it and Chow acts it, it never seems that. I mean, that's the brilliance of this movie, because the movie is by and large quite simple, but the way it is directed, the way Chow Fat plays it, the way Cherie Chung plays that naive country sort of lady, the way that sort of all works together, it makes the film seem much more whole and much more rounded. So that you know, it really does add to the film. You know, it never seems boring. It never, but it is simple. But that's the brilliance of it. The whole motive for Bullet is I want to kill that cop. At this point, that is it. Cherie does really play that naive, shy, timid country type so well. On awakening in the hospital after the car stunt, Chow gives her a necklace that once belonged to his wife. So Lung goes back to move in. As I say, he did divorce her. Chow gets reinstated at the police station. Bullet could have easily just gone back to Vietnam, where his buddy said, and he said, no, I want to kill that cop. Like, has no reason to stick around, but he's just carrying a grudge now for no other reason that he just can't let it go. I mean, talk about a grudge, you know. So after trying to talk to Lung, him being the reasonable guy that he is, just comes at Chow with a knife. Right? This guy just comes at Chow with a knife. Then Bullet at the same time starts blasting into Cherie's house with a shotgun. Very clever at the end with the fire and the set. Lung does sort of a mini redemption as he does try to help and save like Officer Meow when Bullet is trying to kill him. Chow shoots Bullet and the place blows up. I'm not quite sure why it blows up. I'm not sure if that's ever... Maybe I missed something, but the place just starts to blow up. Not sure what actually happens there, but I mean, why not? Not clear where Kaka was this whole time either, as you see her go for a bike ride with Nam, like Chow's sort of buddy, and she just sort of disappears until the end, but Nam is there. Bearing in mind what a focus she was of the plot, the little girl, she sort of does disappear at the end of the movie. The final act, she sort of disappears. So Meow and Lung escape from the roof and ends with Chow and Cherie driving off together. So one can only assume they had Lung's blessing after this, because Lung and Meow sort of help each other out to escape when Bullet comes in to sort of kill Chow's character. I mean, it's a good movie, if a subtle movie, in a way with no real main villain. You think there's a main villain. He sort of gets arrested. Then this other guy just wants to kill Chow. But there's not really a major, huge antagonist to the film. Not to the film, not a continuous one anyway. And the whole idea of Kaka being a witness is sort of kind of irrelevant towards the end of the movie. That sort of does go out the window, as the killer just comes to their doorstep in the end anyway. Like the whole idea was Chow wanted to find out through like this young girl who the killer actually was. The killer just comes after him anyway, so all that work they've done was irrelevant, because Bullet, this guy, this main like crazy killer dude, just comes after Meow in the end anyway. But it's still, I'd say, it's a wonderful film from Ringo Lam, and I promise I will get round to reviewing more of this guy's work. I mean, there's a lot to be said about Ringo Lam. It's Touch and Go he did with Sammo Hung. I think he did Twin Dragons as well. I mean, there's City on Fire is probably the film that he's most famous for. City on Fire is one that I will get round to reviewing as well. But there's a lot to be... I want to get through so many different Hong Kong movies, and there's so many to cover, and there's so many to do. So you'll just have to bear with me as much as possible, and I will try and get through as many as I can, as quick as I can, because as you can probably gathered, I'm a huge fan. Have been for many, many, many years, and there's, like I say, so many films to get through. But if you've never seen Wild Search, check it out, but don't expect like like the John Woo kind of gun violence, ballet, that kind of thing. This is very much a subtle, sweet film with that sort of tense thriller notion running through it. So thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.
Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all that heavenly glory.